Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Sports Fix podcast. I'm here, your host, Travis Hughes. Going solo again this week. I know I said last week in the live podcast that Tyler was going to join me, but we had some scheduling conflicts, and so it's just going to be me today. But, you know, hopefully you guys can live with that. Hope you weren't looking too much forward to seeing Tyler or hearing from Tyler, but all right, so let's jump right into it. We're normally I start with college basketball, but I don't feel like there's a lot going on right now. The conference tournaments are going on. I don't think anything too crazy's gone on. I think it was surprising LSU lost to Florida in the first round of the SEC tournament. I'm okay with that. Tennessee's just got to get through Kentucky, and then they probably beat whoever's on the other side, Auburn or Florida. So I'm actually pretty okay with that. But yeah, I don't really have much to talk about as far as college basketball goes, but I do want to get into the NFL. Free agency has started, and there has been some massive moves in the NFL this season, or this offseason. Antonio Brown, I reported last week that he was going to the Bills. I think that he basically said no to that offer and instead got traded to the Raiders for chump change. I think it was a third and a fifth round pick. It's just absolutely insane the steal the Raiders got there. We'll see how the contract goes for them and see if they can structure his contract well that they can actually afford him. But I think that's a big move for the Raiders. I think that's good for Derek Carr. I think they can focus on an offensive line now to protect their quarterback and now they've got the number one guy that Carr can go to. So I think that's awesome for the Raiders. We'll see if they can improve upon that offense in other ways other than just a receiver. Odell Beckham Jr. Was traded to the Browns, the Cleveland Browns. And actually today we're talking about the AFC South and NFC South, the AFC North and NFC North. And so I'll get into the Browns a bit later, but I think the Browns look scary. They look really scary next year. They got a coach in there that seems to be put them on the right track. They got a general manager who's doing the right thing. The front office seems to be doing the right thing. I think they finally are getting things rolling. They're finally figuring things out. And the Browns look like a AFC Championship contending team for sure right now on paper. Other big trade news: Le'Veon Bell to the Jets. Steelers are getting rid of all their players. I think I thought the Jets of all places was an interesting place for Le'Veon Bell to choose to go. I'm curious to see what happens there because I think that while they're promising, they have promise with Sam Darnold there. I think that there's a lot of holes that team has to fill. And so I was surprised Le'Veon didn't go to a instant title contending team. I thought Houston would have been a good fit for him. It depends on if Houston has the money, but I thought Houston would be a good fit. I thought there were a few teams that he could have been a really good fit at. So I was surprised the Jets of all teams got it, but who knows? Maybe this is a thing they'll get the Jets turned around. I'll believe it when I see it, though. Jason Witten is leaving the broadcasting booth and headed back to the Dallas Cowboys to play tight end for them, doing a whole Brett Favre thing. Let's see if he has as much success this time. And finally, Ryan Tannehill gets traded to the Titans. I think this is really interesting because now you have Marcus Mariota and Ryan Tannehill. They released Blaine Gabbert yesterday. I think that's a very interesting position that the Titans are in now. They've brought in a quarterback competition, which I think is actually good for the team. You don't want arguing over who's going to be the guy in your quarterback, your guy. But I think the competition will push Mariota and Tannehill to push themselves to be better because they've been in positions for the past few years where their jobs are completely secure and they have a lot to improve upon and work on, but they're not being pushed by a second string guy. They've been sitting comfortably in their spot, and I really think that this is a good move. I think I have no idea who's going to win the starting job. Uh, I'm not sure if I want Ryan Tannehill starting at quarterback, but if he beats out Marcus Mariota, I'm totally, if whoever wins that quarterback battle, I'll be happy with who they start, because that means that they competed and they won it. So I think that that's a really interesting choice by them. I would prefer them go through the draft to find a quarterback of the future, because Ryan Tannehill's not a quarterback of the future. He's older than Mariota. So I'm a little surprised by that, but at the same time, we'll see where else this goes. Because, they could be looking to release Mariota or make another trade with Tannehill to try to get some pieces that they're looking for. I'm not sure, but we'll see how it goes for sure. So we'll move on to the next segment with the AFC North and NFC North teams, and this will be the final edition of this segment where we go through each NFL team. So if you haven't heard your team yet, we're covering them today, but kind of go through and talk about what teams I like a lot and what their strengths and weaknesses are and what they need to do this offseason. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, the AFC North Pittsburgh Steelers, I honestly have no idea how that team wasn't in the playoffs last season. That looked like a really good team, and they just kind of fell apart down the stretch. It could be with all the drama with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell giving up on the team. But, they have young players, Juju Smith-Schuster, who can step up, and James Conner did step up. And so I was just kind of surprised that team just couldn't get the job done late in the season. And I couldn't really put a finger on it. What I do think, though, that they need to start looking at is Big Ben's replacement. They've got a couple backup quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph, there right now, that guys that they've brought in to potentially be Big Ben's replacements. I've not seen anything out of them that's proved that they can come in and be an NFL starter right away. We'll see how they develop, but I think that the Steelers need to find Ben Roethlisberger's replacement soon, because that's a very tough. Yeah, they got a good team. They got good talent there. James Conner's a fantastic running back. He put up crazy numbers last year, and I put a lot of that on the Steelers' offensive line. They have an incredible offensive line. They have good receivers. The big thing, they got a good defense. That I just didn't understand what happened there, and I think ultimately it falls on the quarterback. Even if the quarterback's playing decently, if you're not winning games, it does to an extent come down to your quarterback not getting it done, especially when you have the talent that you did around them. And I really thought they underutilized James Conner going down the stretch. I think that's what happened. The first half of the season he was dominating any defensive front that he went up against, and they started underutilizing him, I felt like, and I feel like that put that was a big issue with their decline and what happened there. So next, the Baltimore Ravens. That was a team that they made the playoffs last year. They had a good defense, had one of the best running attacks in the NFL. And so when I was looking at what could possibly be an upgrade for them, I saw, Lamar Jackson, I'm not saying he's a bad passer, but the passing game wasn't there for them last season. They were very run heavy. I think when Lamar Jackson was at quarterback, they ran 60 or 70% of the time, and it worked for them. And it worked for them, and they should keep doing that. If they want to be a run heavy team, they need to be a run heavy team. But I think they need a receiver who can come in and be a go-to guy for Lamar Jackson that he can look to. Probably a veteran outside receiver that Lamar Jackson can trust and put a ball out on the throw it out to the sideline and trust that he can make a 5, 6, 7 yard catch. You don't need anything explosive if you're the Ravens. The way they want to run offense is slow, methodical, run the ball, pound the rock, wear you down kind of offense. And that's a great offense. It's a fun offense to watch. But I do think that they need to they need to upgrade at receiver for sure so that they can have a bit more of a balanced attack. So you can't just sell out on the run and stop them, because I don't think that's a I don't think it's something that can last super long. You can't run 70% of the time and expect to win and go to the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen because teams are going to figure out how to stop it. So you got to be able to keep the teams off balance a little bit. If you want to do 60-40 run pass, I think that's okay. 55, somewhere between 55-45 and 60-40 heavy run. I think that's fine, but you have to throw enough to keep them off balance and keep them, maybe they're expecting the run, but they expect the run, but they have to respect the pass. So I think that's where the Ravens can really improve. The next team, the Cincinnati Bengals, that's a train wreck of a team if I do say so myself. A lot going on there. They finally they fired Marvin Lewis, right? I'm pretty confident they fired him. If I swear if they okay, no, he did. They did fire Marvin Lewis. Okay, I just wanted to be sure of that because they've been talking about firing him for many off seasons, and I had to be sure that they actually did fire him. Anyway, the Bengals have a good quarterback, I think, in Andy Dalton. I think he can do a lot of things for them. So I like their quarterback. Their running back situation is decent. It's not great, but they have an okay situation there. I don't feel like you need to make any major upgrades this offseason. Their defense seems solid. Not fantastic. It's just not a great team all around. And that's once again, they had an abysmal offensive line this past season. And if you're a bad team, you have to start at the offensive line. You have to, because you have to be able to protect. You got to be able to run the ball. You're not going to have the flashy players necessarily, at least not at first. That you're not going to have guys that you're not going to go. Yeah, if you focus on rebuilding your trenches, you're going to be an 8-8, 9-7, 7-9 team that first year. That you're going to be kind of mediocre, but you have a structure and a foundation, especially when you have a quarterback that's as talented as Andy Dalton. That can, if you can protect him and keep him upright, he can win you some games on his own. So I really think that is that would be good for the Bengals to do, is to upgrade the offensive line and look to build around that. Your offensive line and Andy Dalton, and you can fill in pieces around that. But if you focus on that and that's where you want to build your team around, then build your team around that. I think that's what they should do. Now, the Cleveland Browns. This is a very interesting situation. They were a team that won 3 games in 2 years, just a couple years ago. This past offseason, this past season they won 7 games, I believe. I think it was 7 or 8. They won 7 or 8 games, and that makes them sound actually a lot worse than they were. That team in the second half of the season looked like a playoff contender team. They were starting to get things together. Then they added Kareem Hunt, who received an 8-game suspension for his video, which, pretty big, but I feel like he should have probably been punished a bit more, considering Ray Rice basically had his career ended for a similar situation. But Kareem Hunt is going to be their running back after 8 games. And even then they have Nick Chubb and Duke Johnson Jr., who can, they did pretty well last season. They were pretty fine by themselves last season. So I actually like them a lot. They bring in OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. from the Giants. Fantastic receiver. I think that's a horrible move by the Giants, by the way. That was not what you wanted to do at all. But moving on from that, the Browns are, I honestly don't see very many weaknesses with that team. They had a great defense last season. Baker Mayfield looked good. They finally looked like they were putting the pieces together once Hugh Jackson got fired. So I I really like this team actually after these offseason changes, and it's not even the draft yet. I really like this team. I would not be surprised whatsoever to see the Browns in the AFC Championship game next year. It's not a team I think that can go win a Super Bowl. I think you're lacking in a lot of winning experience, some Super Bowl experience with that team. But I don't know. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of experience that they don't have, but there's a lot of talent that can make up for the lack of experience. I really, really like this Browns team, and I would not be surprised whatsoever to see them in playoff and title contention next season. They're that talented, I think. Moving on to the NFC North, I actually really want to have Tyler on for this one because the Packers are in this division, but ideally we're going to have him on to do a draft, our draft predictions here in a few weeks. And we can talk to him about what he thinks about some of these changes and what he thinks about the Packers, what they need to do. But for me, I think the Packers need they've got solid receivers, they've got running backs that can get the job done. Their defense actually was pretty good, was pretty solid last season. I think they need this is not a bad team that needs to build around an offensive line. This is a good team that needs an offensive line to supplement all the skill positions that they have. They cannot waste Aaron Rodgers anymore. He is such a talented player. He is the guy's a Super Bowl winner. He has potential to still win another one or two, I think. And they can't let that fall with the wayside. They can't lose that. They can't waste the talent that they've got there to not go to the playoffs even. They didn't go to the playoffs for 2 straight seasons. And granted, Aaron Rodgers was hurt for not last season, but the season before. He was hurt for a majority of it. But that was a team that I felt like easily should be in the playoffs. And granted, the NFC was tough this season, but they still should have been able to make the playoffs with the talent that they have on that team. Next, the Chicago Bears. I think that they're my pick that Tyler and I went over. They're my way too early pick for NFC champion, representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So I really think that that's a good. I think that's a good option, or I think that they are a very good team. I think that something they're missing though is a true number one running back. Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard split a lot of reps last season. Mitchell Trubisky, their quarterback, had he has the capability to run. So I think that that's something that they can build on. They don't need to have with his threat to run. They don't have to have a running back run for 100 yards a game. But I think that they've got enough weapons at receiver and on defense that they need a true number one running back. I can't think. No one comes to mind right now. A lot of my guys that I would suggest actually have already been traded. But I think that they need a number one running back who's Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen kind of have two different styles. Jordan Howard wants to run it, pound the rock, run it down between the tackles. Tariq Cohen's more of a speedy edge guy. And I think that they need a guy who can combine all those things and put them together. And put them together and make like the number one feature back. And then you could have Tariq Cohen or Jordan Howard as his replacement to come in to give him a breather from on third down kind of situations. But I mean, they need a Leonard Fournette type player who can do it all, who is going to be your number one guy for a few years coming. Because I think Mitchell Trubisky's got he's got tremendous talent, and he's going to do a lot of things in the league. And they need a running back to supplement him for sure. Moving on, we've got the Detroit Lions. This is a situation I actually would love to be the GM for the Detroit Lions. I think that there's a lot of things that they need to look at doing. I think they need to restructure Matthew Stafford's contract. When he signed that contract to be the highest paid player in NFL history, and granted it's been surpassed since then, it's been absolutely he's done absolutely nothing for them. I feel like that team has been very underwhelming, and he's not played very well. And I think that you have to go in and restructure his contract. It's not a good contract whatsoever. Not saying that Matthew Stafford's not a good quarterback. I just don't. I think he's way overpaid for what he's done with them in his career. I think they need to look at restructuring his contract, paying him less to put more weapons around him. You see the Lions have made some, in my opinion, really bad roster decisions because they're so hampered by Stafford's contract. So I really think that they need to look at restructure his contract and build a team around him that they can use. It was such a bad situation, I feel like, to have him sign that. And I think if he doesn't want to restructure, I think you look to replace him. He's a good quarterback. I think you can make the playoffs annually with him. I just think that he is selfish. He took too much money for himself and doesn't have a team to build around him. And so I would actually love to be in that situation to restructure his contract and have a team that can work on Stafford and work around him and help him elevate to the next level. And finally, we have the Minnesota Vikings. That was a really interesting team last season. I feel like they had a lot of good pieces. They have Dalvin Cook's a great running back, supplemented by Latavius Murray. Kirk Cousins was a good bring in for them. I think they paid him too much, but he was a good free agent signing for them for sure. I think their running backs, or not the running backs, their receivers are great. Adam Thielen comes to mind, and please tell me this is his name. I'm gonna look it up just to be sure that I have his name right. I'm thinking Sidney Rice. Sidney Rice is still playing for them, right? Or no, he's not. Sidney Rice was a former Vikings player. Who am I thinking of? Give me 1 second. Stephon Diggs, that's what I'm thinking of. Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Laquan Treadwell, even good running back, or good receivers that they've got going there. Their defense is great. I think that their offense just kind of struggled last season. I think there were a lot of issues, but they replaced their offensive coordinator halfway through the season, and when he came in, that team actually looked really good. They looked like they compete for playoffs, but they'd lost so many games by then that it didn't matter. So I really think that was a team that if they can just gel better together, they can make this new offensive coordinator work, that they can do it. They can this could be a really good team actually, and be a Super Bowl contender, because I think Kirk Cousins looked a lot better. I think the whole team looked a lot better once their new offensive coordinator came in. So yeah, I really think that a lot of teams we talked about today are really close. They're on the edge. They could really do it. They could take the next step and really move up to the next level. But with that, it's been kind of a short episode, but we're getting to the point where there's not a ton to talk about with college basketball and the NBA. NBA, I'm not a giant. It's hard to talk about the NBA until playoffs roll around. College basketball, we're in the conference tournaments, which are good. They've been pretty good to watch so far, but overall, I think that I think that it's kind of we're getting into that time of year where sports kind of are going into that drought. My least favorite time of the year actually is from it's when as soon as college basketball ends to when football starts. It's just not my favorite. Well, even then, when you got the NBA still a little bit, but once the NBA finals are over, it's you got that like 2 months of just. For me, it's super boring. I'm not a giant baseball fan. I mean, I watch baseball. I can appreciate baseball, but I'm not a giant baseball fan. Um, but so we're getting to that time of the year. But actually, speaking of which, I'm going to be taking a break for a couple weeks. Not 100% sure how long, but I'm going to be taking a break for a couple weeks with the podcast, um, finishing up schooling and working on some other things. I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to do this for a couple weeks, but I hope to do another episode in the next couple weeks to talk about the draft, specifically NFL draft, and also March Madness, everything going on there. We'll see, but I would like to do that. And I'm not planning to stop the podcast by any stretch of the imagination. I want to continue it. I just have other things in life that are coming up, and so I'm going to be taking a break for a couple weeks, and it may evolve into something where it's not every week, but maybe every other week or every once or twice a month. So we'll see where this goes. We'll keep you posted on the Sports Fix Facebook page. So yeah, we'll keep you posted, and I'll let you know what the situation is. But it's been a blast doing this, and I'm looking forward to continue doing it. And I want to thank you guys so much for participating and listening. It's been a ton of fun for me, and so I just want to say good luck to you guys out there, and good luck to the Tennessee Volunteers as well, as they'll be playing in about an hour and a half. Playing Kentucky for a berth in the SEC Tournament Championship. And if they win out, I'd say they have a pretty good shot at number 1 overall seed in the tournament. But we'll see. With that, I'll be logging off and hoping to talk to you guys here in a couple weeks. But best of luck, guys, and we'll see you next time.